A thick silence swallows a rural Japanese village under an overcast sky. Inside a small, shadowy home built of paper and wood, a young blind boy sits cross-legged on a straw mat, unmoving. The earth subtly rumbles beneath him. Smoke begins to seep through the paper walls. Not literal, but imagined. And with it, the faint echo of screams. Through his mind's eye, visions bloom. Cities crumbling in slow motion. Skies ignited in blinding white light. Mushroom clouds swelling above shattered landscapes. The boy shakes violently as the wailing of 1,000 souls pierces the air, and fire dances across his pale skin. In this moment, the boy is awakened, not by gods, but by a terrible knowing. As the visions fade, the child collapses into stillness, trembling as a new truth settles in his bones. Japan will burn, and only he can stop it. The shores of Leyte are torn apart by bullets, mortars, and artillery fire. The sky is a burning tapestry of tracer fire and plummeting aircraft. American landing craft slam into the beaches, ramp doors opening to unleash waves of soldiers into the chaos. Through the smoke and destruction, Sergeant Jack Fury leads a squad of seasoned warriors, the Howling Commandos, across no man's land. Dum Dum Dugan, Gabe Jones, and James Howlett, also known as Lucky Jim, move like a pack of wolves, synchronized, deadly, battle-hardened. They bark hand signals, take cover behind craters and wreckage, and surge forward with practiced aggression. They're the tip of the spear, pushing back the entrenched Japanese defenders in a series of brutal jungle skirmishes. Mud splashes across their uniforms, blood mingles with rainwater in shallow trenches. Through it all, Fury keeps them moving, not just with orders, but with fire in his eyes. Beyond the beachhead, inland the jungle waits. Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, parachutes blooming behind them like ghostly flowers. They land hard, vanish into the underbrush, and quickly recover. Every step forward is slow, deliberate. This is not a battlefield. This is a world unto itself. Steve and Bucky's mission is clear. Locate and extract a Filipino translator working for the Japanese, a man who's made contact through back channels with American intelligence. He claims to have critical information, something that could change the course of the war in the Pacific. No backup, no visibility, no guarantee he's telling the truth. Just coordinates, and the sound of the jungle breathing, unseen by them. Just beyond their path, eyes watch from the shadows. Forces, human and otherwise, are already in motion. And so begins their descent into a war-torn world of myth, madness, and memory. Along their path, they have freed American and Filipino POWs, disarmed patrols, and left behind the kind of chaos only two elite operatives can. Eventually, they come upon a half-collapsed guerrilla bunker. A trap door creaks open, and a young man steps into the pale light. Dirty, wounded, trembling with exhaustion and grief. Alejo. His eyes are hollow. Haunted, the boy is the target, the translator. We cut to a flashback in a quiet Japanese encampment in the highlands. Rice pots simmer. Soldiers drink and smoke in idle conversation. Alejo and his sister, Talia, move silently among them. Servants, interpreters, invisible. Their eyes are downcast. They live on the edge of obedience and fear. The peace is broken by a sudden, unnatural silence. A chill rolls in. From the edge of the camp, Tomi Shishido emerges. Japanese soldiers bark warnings, raise rifles, and then screams. In an instant, flesh turns to stone. One by one, the men collapse, petrified mid-motion, twisted in agony. A soldier reaching for his bayonet freezes, his body cracking like old marble. Another, trying to flee, turns to brittle ash in a blink. Alejo and Talia cower beneath a supply cart, paralyzed by fear. Shishido moves like a specter through the dying platoon, his power blossoming from beneath his skin like a curse. He speaks, calm, quiet, terrifying, demanding the location of a cache of ancient artifacts and gold. The Yamashita treasure. None survive to answer him. As the massacre ends, silence returns. Shishido stands amidst a garden of the dead, cracked and broken statues littering the jungle floor. His head turns, sensing the presence of others. Alejo gasps. They run, a blur of motion. Branches claw at their skin. Alejo pulls his sister forward. Through mud, thorns, streams, but Shishido follows without haste, gliding like a phantom. They reach a ravine. Alejo turns back. Talia is gone. Back to the present. Alejo finishes his story. Steve and Bucky take it in. Bucky leans against a rotting timber post, his expression wary. He's exhausted, dirty, and bleeding, but it's not the physical toll that's bothering him. It's absurdity, a single man turning soldiers to stone, tales of cursed treasure, and now, the weight of something darker looming just beneath the surface. Alejo, shaking but resolute, produces an emblem, a torn cloth fragment singed around the edges. Steve takes it and inspects the design. It's unmistakable, a stylized serpent intertwined with a chrysanthemum, an offshoot of the Hydra insignia. Distorted, Eastern, cult-like. Steve's jaw tightens. There may be more to this than revenge or power. The jungle canopy opens up to reveal a small clearing near a river, the planned rendezvous for Steve and Bucky's extraction. Smoke from a flare curls upward. Through the misty morning haze, the Howling Commandos emerge, tired, battered, but intact. Sergeant Jack Fury surveys the clearing, his boots crunching over debris and dropped rifles. Filipino guerrillas stand in a loose semicircle, weapons trained on a group of Japanese soldiers, disarmed, wide-eyed, muttering feverishly, their uniforms ragged and caked in blood and soil. James Howlett squats near one, who's rocking back and forth in a trance-like state, whispering something over and over. Howlett leans in. The soldier stammers about shadows that move without men, voices that crawl through the trees, and phantoms with burning eyes in the valley ahead. One word repeats again and again, a local name whispered like a curse. Howlett narrows his eyes and glances toward the green fog-covered ridgeline just beyond the clearing. Later that day, dense bamboo thickets part to reveal a hidden Japanese relay station. Inside, Steve works to rig the comm system, trying to get a message out to the commandos. Bucky checks the perimeter while Alejo rifles through documents and maps. But then, a flicker. The forest goes silent. 3 figures step from the tree-line. Assassins. They move like wraiths, their weapons shimmering with symbols that glow faintly in the fading light. The air goes cold. Steve rushes forward, shield raised. Bucky flanks. The fight begins. But the assassins don't fight like soldiers. They fight like monsters. One moves with serpentine speed, dislocating limbs to evade strikes. Another manipulates shadow, warping it into blades. The third levitates, hurling concussive bursts of chi energy that explode like cannon fire. Bucky is knocked through a wall, coughing up blood. Steve is pinned, his shield cracking under the force of a cursed blade. Then, as the killing blow nears, smoke floods the clearing. From its depths emerges a tall, composed figure, Kenji Oyama. His presence stops the fight instantly. The assassins retreat, obedient. Oyama walks calmly to Alejo, who stumbles back in terror. But there's no struggle. One touch from Oyama, and Alejo stiffens, paralyzed. In a blur, they vanish into the jungle, shrouded in mist and magic. Steve pushes himself up, staring into the trees, battered and bewildered. Whatever this is, it's not just war. It's something older, darker, and it's just beginning. As Oyama and his assassins disappear into the jungle with Alejo, the still-burning outpost crackles in the background. Steve hauls Bucky up from the wreckage of a shattered comm shack, his uniform torn and shield scorched. Then, the jungle erupts. A cascade of rifle fire tears through the tree-line. Dozens of Imperial Japanese soldiers emerge, encircling the ruins of the outpost. Steve and Bucky duck for cover as the enemy advances. Explosions rip apart bamboo groves. Grenades whistle through the air. The pair hold their ground, outgunned, outnumbered. But before they're overwhelmed, the cavalry arrives. The Howling Commandos storm in from the river flank. Howlett charges like an animal, feral and unrelenting. Dum-Dum Dugan lobs a grenade into a machine gun nest. Gabe Jones flattens soldiers with his carbine. The jungle becomes a battleground of fire and chaos. Steve rejoins the unit mid-fight, his shield slicing through gun barrels and helmets. Together, the commandos rout the Japanese platoons in a fierce skirmish that leaves the jungle smoking and strewn with bodies. Later that evening, the survivors push off in a narrow riverboat, navigating through the winding Kasanga River under the cloak of darkness. Inside the boat, the atmosphere is heavy. The men are bruised, muddy, and silent, lit only by a flickering lantern hanging from the center post. They clean their weapons, patch up their wounds. One tends to a photograph tucked into his helmet. Another silently smokes, lost in thought. A rough map lies spread out in the middle of the boat, held down by knives and ammo pouches. Alejo's notes, gathered from stolen Japanese files and his own memory, are marked with red ink. The treasure's last known location, a burial site in the mountains, a hidden cavern beneath a ruined temple. The commandos gather around it, debating tactics and logistics with hushed urgency. Steve leans over the map, focused. Bucky scans the jungle with binoculars from the stern. Then tensions rise. Jack Fury taps a marked point on the map, the likely treasure site, and offers a strategy. But it's not just about rescuing the translators or stopping the enemy anymore. For him, the treasure represents leverage. Enough gold to fund nations. End wars faster. Give the U.S. a powerful advantage against both the Axis and even the post-war world taking shape. Other commandos quietly nod. Steve, meanwhile, stays silent for a bit. Then he steps forward, eyes on the map, not the gold, and makes a different argument. To him, the treasure is cursed by blood, looted, stolen, and hidden away during a war fueled by colonial greed and cruelty. If they take it, they become no better than the ones who hoarded it. It's not theirs to claim. Their mission is the people, Alejo, Talia, the victims of this war, not its spoils. The silence that follows is telling. The unit is split. Howlett sits back, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. Dum-Dum grumbles and slings his rifle over his shoulder. Some nod to Steve, others to Fury, but the divide lingers, quiet and heavy. Upon arriving at the edge of a Japanese outpost, Mountain Valley, the team splits into two. Steve and Bucky move low through dense undergrowth toward a dilapidated Japanese outpost embedded into a moss-covered ridge. The jungle here is quiet, but not peaceful, ominous, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath. They find the bodies first. Japanese soldiers splayed across the path and strung up on pikes, eyes wide in terror, mouths frozen in silent screams. Some are twisted unnaturally, bones snapped from within, limbs hardened into gray, stone-like textures. Inside the courtyard, a few more soldiers lie dead in grotesque poses, weapons untouched, expressions contorted mid-scream. Steve gestures for silence. They fan out, weapons raised, approaching a corrugated metal armory where dim lantern light flickers. Suddenly, a crash. A Japanese officer staggers backward out the armory door, his chest torn open by a long iron spike. The body slumps, and behind it emerges Tomi Shishido. Pale, expressionless, his milky blind eyes blank as the grave. He drags Talia behind him with a single hand. She claws and fights, but he moves without effort, as if walking a leash. Steve charges first. Shishido releases Talia with a flick and slams his palm into the dirt. Stone shards rupture upward like jagged teeth, splitting the ground and sending Cap flying backward into a weapons rack. Bucky opens fire. His bullets curve midair, bending unnaturally as they reach Shishido, slowing, then dropping harmlessly at his feet. Shishido steps through the gunfire, calm and terrifying. With a twist of his hand, a shockwave of cracking petrification races across the wall, turning the metal into splintered gray rock, rusted and brittle. Cap recovers, grabs his shield, But this time, Shishido draws a katana. Steve closes the gap, shield up, and the two clash violently. Steel against vibranium. Shishido's movements are impossibly precise, each swing of his blade guided by something beyond sight. Sparks fly as katana meets shield in a flurry of strikes. Steve goes on the defensive, bracing as Shishido delivers a ruthless barrage of vertical slashes, each one narrowly missing his neck or legs. Shishido flips over a stack of crates, landing behind Steve, sweeping low. Steve blocks just in time, parrying with a shield and counters with a kick to the ribs. The two warriors circle each other in the armory ruins, their silhouettes dancing in flickering firelight. Shishido spins, slashing sideways. The katana slices a beam clean in half. He follows up with a thrust towards Steve's midsection, but Cap redirects the blade with a forearm block and punches Shishido across the jaw, sending him staggering. But the katana is more than a blade. It hums with petrifying energy. On contact with the environment, it leaves trails of calcification, turning wood and metal brittle. When it grazes the edge of Steve's shield, a patch of stone crusts over the vibranium for a moment before shattering off. Bucky tries to intervene, firing a few rounds to disrupt Shishido's focus. But the bullets curve midair again, diverted by unseen force. Shishido presses in. The duel becomes brutal and close quarters. Steve uses a fallen bayonet to wedge under the katana's blade and disarm Shishido momentarily. Shishido counters by grabbing Steve's arm. Petrification races up his bicep, turning fabric and flesh to stone. Steve grits his teeth, pivots, and slams his shoulder into Shishido, driving both of them through the armory wall into a gravel pit below. Steve grabs a splintered metal rod and goes toe-to-toe, bashing, blocking, jabbing. The rhythm changes. He finds his opening and lands a crushing blow to Shishido's ribs, sending him crashing through a pile of gear. In the chaos, Bucky grabs Talia, pulling her out of the danger zone. Cap throws his shield at Shishido that knocks the wind from him. Bucky slides in, shoulder tackling Shishido across the gravel, finally giving them the upper hand. Steve and Bucky have Shishido pinned to the ground, the once untouchable warrior now bloodied and breathing hard. Steve has one knee to Shishido's chest, shield planted between them. Bucky stands nearby, gun lowered but ready, eyes fixed on the strange figure beneath them. Talia watches from a short distance, shaken but safe. Shishido begins to speak, slowly and intensely, his chest rising and falling beneath the weight of Steve's grip. His words are deliberate, filled with gravitas. As he speaks, Steve and Bucky's expressions shift from suspicion to disbelief, and then to disturbed realization. He tells them of a hidden order centuries old, a clandestine cult of Japan's most elite scientists, mystics, assassins, and generals, founded in secrecy and sanctioned by the Emperor's inner circle. Their mission: to evolve humanity beyond its limits through ritual, science, and sacrifice. Steve and Bucky exchange tense glances. Shishido continues. He speaks of the dawn of the White Light, a sect loyal only to the mythic bloodline of the Emperor, a lineage they believe to be divine, descending from Amaterasu, the sun goddess. He paints a picture of a doctrine rooted in purity, supremacy, and apocalyptic foresight, a doctrine that views Japan's survival as ordained, and the war merely a divine test. Shishido claims Oyama has gone, his former master, the founder of the cult, a man whose obsession with unlocking the Emperor's latent divinity has driven him to the Philippines in search of a relic, one forged in ancient times, buried long ago, pulsing with unnatural power. Shishido speaks faster now, his tone growing intense. He reveals that this relic is not merely a treasure. It is older than Japan, older than the Empire. It was left behind by the first gods of the archipelago, a vessel of celestial fire and fate. With it, Oyama intends to awaken the dormant spark within the Emperor's blood, turning him into something no man or soldier was ever meant to face. Shishido's voice falters. He speaks softer now. He admits he tried to stop Oyama, that he defected from the cult, that the visions which haunt him, visions of Japan's ruin, are no longer merely prophecy, but a countdown. That Oyama's success would only ensure the worst version of the future. At last, Shishido pleads, not out of desperation, but conviction. Force Steve to finish what he could not. For the good of the world. At the dense Philippine jungle, the thick foliage darkens as Steve Rogers, alone, navigates deeper into the heart of the island. At the lake's center, a deep mechanical groan echoes beneath the surface. Bubbles rise. Steve crouches in the undergrowth, eyes fixed. Slowly, like some leviathan stirring from ancient slumber, a colossal Japanese amphibious landing craft begins to emerge from the water. It's adorned with strange Shinto inscriptions, rusted steel mixed with ivory and gold. A bastardization of war machine and ritual altar. The landing ramp yawns open with a hiss of steam. Steve moves, dashing from tree to tree. He approaches the vessel's flank and silently boards. Inside, the corridors are dimly lit by swaying lanterns. Paper talismans hang from the walls beside racks of katanas and ritual weapons. He moves deeper through the eerie hallways. Guards patrol, but Steve is swift, slipping between shadow and steel, dispatching one silently with a thrown shield, avoiding others entirely. You find a holding cell, the heavy door cracked open. Inside lies Alejo, bruised, bloodied, barely breathing. His arms are bound. He lies on his side on the cold metal floor, ribs rising shallowly. Steve doesn't hesitate. He bursts in and lifts Alejo gently onto his back, wrapping one arm around his shoulder for support. Alejo stirs, eyes fluttering, but does not wake. Steve begins to carry him out, step by step, the ship's groans masked by the jungle's night chorus. He's almost out. Then, a sudden whoosh. A katana slices through the air, narrowly missing Steve's neck. He ducks, barely keeping Alejo from slipping. Kenji Oyama emerges from the shadows, two engraved katanas drawn. Steve steps back, gently setting Alejo down behind him. Oyama attacks. What follows is a furious and balletic duel in the tight metal corridor. Oyama moves with unnatural precision. Every stroke a calculated test of Steve's defense. Steel clashes with vibranium. Sparks fly as Oyama's twin swords meet the unyielding shield. Steve blocks, counters strikes, but Oyama is faster. He parries and flows like water, his swords cutting arcs of gleaming silver, forcing Steve into a corner. Steve lands a solid punch, staggering Oyama, but the cultist recovers instantly, slicing at Steve's leg, then disarming him with a well-placed upward strike. Steve falls to one knee. Oyama lifts both swords overhead. Two clean, brutal strikes. Steve collapses. Meanwhile, the Howling Commandos, weary but alert, stand at the foot of a crumbling Spanish colonial church, half swallowed by the encroaching jungle. They advance cautiously. Behind the altar, buried under rubble and creeping vines, they discover a concealed stairway, the trapdoor beneath a collapsed confessional. The passage descends deep into darkness. One by one, they descend into the abyss. The catacombs are narrow and suffocating. Skeletons line the walls, stacked in niches and sealed behind crumbling stonework. The path opens wider. They reach a section with collapsed pillars and broken statuary, hinting that this structure is much older than the church above. Then, they step into a massive underground cavern. In the center of the chamber stands a colossal tomb, an ancient imperial mausoleum, Japanese in design, but corrupted by centuries of secrecy and stolen conquest. Its surface is decorated with dragon motifs, sun discs, and kanji etched in gold leaf. Stacks of gold bars, gem-encrusted idols, and artifacts from across Asia and beyond are scattered around it. Thousands of pieces, some sacred, some ceremonial, all looted. The commandos fan out in awe and apprehension. They sweep the perimeter and set up a fortified garrison, sandbagging the arched corridors and forming sentry lines at each entrance. A pair of soldiers hoist a radio antenna through the narrow stone shaft leading to the surface. Crackling static. A signal is sent to the rest, of the Howling Commandos across the island. Back at Oyama's ship, Steve's unconscious form lies chained to a bulkhead. Alejo's still nearby, barely stirring. Oyama stands over them, listening intently to a radio transmission picked up from Steve's gear. His eyes narrow. Through the static, he hears coordinates. Talk of a tomb, of gold. A grin spreads slowly across his face. The silence of the jungle fractures as a torrent of explosions erupts along the church's perimeter. Tracer fire rips through the darkness, streaks of red and white lancing over the heads of the Howling Commandos, who scramble to defensive positions around the shattered church and gaping catacomb entrance. Oyama's forces descend like a swarm. They flank from the trees, from the ridgeline, overwhelming the narrow defensive ring. Bullets slice through sandbags, stone, and bone alike. Inside the tomb chamber, Jack Fury barks commands, ducking behind fallen statuary as the tomb becomes a battleground. Dust and gold fill the air. Relics are shattered beneath boot heels. The commandos fight valiantly, but for every attacker downed, more take their place. Howlett is driven back, blood flying from his cheek as a sickle slices across his face. Another blow to his ribs sends him crashing into a broken column. He rises, teeth bared, body trembling with rage, but he's slower now. Wounded, breathing heavy, the assassin doesn't let up. A flurry of spinning strikes rains down, 1, 2, 3, piercing his side, forcing Howlett to a knee. He drives a bone claw upward in desperation, but the assassin catches his wrist, twisting it until the bone cracks. Howlett roars, trying to rise. The assassin lifts both sickles for the kill, and then a bullet punches through the assassin's throat. They drop wordlessly, dissolving into smoke. Dum-Dum Dugan lowers his rifle, panting, eyes wide. He offers Howlett a hand. Suddenly, Bucky Barnes crashes through a broken arch, rifle blazing. Shishido follows, bloodied, determined, his pale eyes burning. Together, they carve through the enemy ranks, pushing back the tide, blades and bullets meeting bone and armor. Shishido moves like a specter, spinning between pillars with serpentine grace. His sword gleams, cutting arcs through Oyama's enhanced troops. For a moment, the tide turns. But then, Kenji Oyama appears, striding through the mayhem like a ghost of death. Twin katanas gleam in either hand. He rushes Shishido. The two clash beneath the stone guardian of the tomb, steel ringing against steel, the sound echoing like a dirge. Oyama's strikes are swift, disciplined, and brutal. Shishido meets each one with fury, but he's wounded, weary. Oyama gains ground. A flurry of slashes forces Shishido back against a golden idol. The commandos are losing ground. One by one, they're herded together, forced to their knees by Oyama's remaining assassins. The radio antenna lies shattered. Their signal is lost. Then, a distant rumble. From the jungle, torchlight emerges. The Filipino guerrilla unit, ragged but fierce, storms the churchyard with handmade rifles, bolos, and stolen Japanese weapons. Their battle cries pierce the din, their bullets find targets. In the chaos, Oyama's troops falter. Amid the confusion, Captain America charges out of the tree-line, shield raised, mud and blood caked across his uniform. He barrels into the fight, shield deflecting rounds, fist shattering ribs. With him is a wounded but alive Alejo, cradled by one of the guerrillas. The tide turns again. Bleeding, barely able to stand, Shishido watches as Oyama turns to face the renewed chaos. The cult leader's eyes narrow. He prepares to retreat, but in that moment of distraction, Shishido rises. He lunges. His blade drives forward, catching Oyama under the ribs. Oyama stumbles, turning just in time to see Shishido twist the blade with one final effort. Oyama falls to the ground in a heap, lifeless, his katanas clattering on the stone. As the remaining survivors regroup, the Howling Commandos and Shishido head to the catacombs to survey the cache. On their way, Shishido tells them the story of Hiriko, the firstborn child of the deities of creation, Izanami and Izanagi, and how the child was banished for its weakness and replaced by another named Amaterasu. Deep underground, lit by flickering torches and beams of moonlight piercing cracks in the rock, Steve Rogers, James Howlett, Bucky Barnes, the surviving Howling Commandos, and Tomi Shishido tread solemnly through ancient, dust-choked corridors. Shishido moves to the center, lowering himself to one knee before the altar. He rests a hand upon the cold stone, reverently, his voice low but cutting through the silence like a blade. As the others watch, he begins to speak, almost in a trance. His words tell of the primordial deities, Izanami and Izanagi, who forged the islands of Japan. From their union came a child, Hiriko, born deformed, boneless, and feeble. Disgraced and shamed, the gods cast Hiriko into the sea, deeming him unfit to rule or even live. In time, the gods tried again, and from them came Amaterasu, the radiant goddess of the sun, perfect, divine, and beloved. She became the chosen, the heir, the one worshipped as the ancestress of emperors. Shishido tells them that the world forgot Hiriko. But Hiriko did not forget the world. Beneath the tides and in the shadows of the earth, Hiriko endured, and in time, his bloodline scattered across generations, cursed, gifted, hidden. He turns now, facing the soldiers, his expression unreadable as he speaks of premonitions, visions of fire and devastation. Of a city turned to ash, a mushroom cloud blooming like a new sun above his home. Hiroshima. He steps toward the altar and strikes the stone, revealing beneath it a small ornate box, sealed with rustic clasps and bound in red cloth marked with ancient sigils. He lifts the box gently, almost reverently. This is what Oyama seeks, a relic of divine heritage, a vessel of Hiriko's bloodline and power, capable of unlocking the true divinity of the Emperor, or reshaping fate itself. But Shishido says he no longer serves Oyama. He intends to use the relic himself, to change what he has seen, to rewrite the fate of his people, and save Japan from the firestorm he knows is coming. Shishido's white eyes glow faintly, and the sigils on the opened relic pulse with eerie crimson light. His muscles tense, his presence now transformed. Something ancient stirs within him. The commandos ready their weapons, sensing the shift, but it's too late. A shockwave explodes outward from Shishido. The floor fractures, ancient tiles spiraling into shards as a blinding pulse of power hurls several commandos violently into the walls. Some are crushed by falling debris. Others are caught mid-motion and turned into hardened statues, their bodies trapped in twisted contortions, petrified by sheer proximity. Firelight erupts from Shishido's body, ghostly, flickering, as if some eldritch god burns within him. The chamber is thrown into chaos. Rogers lunges, shield raised, just as a stone column crashes beside him. Howlett barrels forward, claws unsheathed, roaring, his eyes wild. Bucky circles wide, flanking, drawing fire from the supercharged energy coursing around Shishido. Shishido moves with unnatural speed, a blur of fabric and light. His feet barely touch the ground as he drives forward. His katana slices toward Cap, who blocks just in time, vibranium singing against the blade. Sparks fly. The impact launches Rogers back, embedding him into a wall of bones. Howlett slashes in from the side, but Shishido twists, his movements fluid, unnatural, like smoke given form. He dodges and retaliates, striking pressure points, then sending a pulse of energy from his palm that hurls Howlett through a stone pillar. Bucky fires a burst from his rifle, but the bullets freeze in midair, then drop harmlessly to the ground. Shishido flicks his wrist, and a wave of dark energy surges toward him. Bucky rolls, narrowly avoiding the stone-splitting blast, but his arm is scraped, burning with a glowing mark. Cap rejoins the fray, charging full force, using the tight corridors of the catacombs to his advantage. He rebounds off walls, dodging slashes, his shield flying and returning in rapid arcs. He lands a solid blow. Shishido stumbles, briefly disoriented. Howlett pounces. His bone claws dig into Shishido's back, but only briefly. With a guttural roar, Shishido expels another blast, sending Howlett slamming to the ground, smoke rising from his body. Steve and Bucky press in again, coordinated, Cap draws Shishido's focus, absorbing strike after strike while Bucky maneuvers behind, landing punches, cracking ribs. But Shishido's rage mounts, and his divine aura erupts in a maelstrom, forcing both men back once again. Across the chamber, Shishido floats, eyes blazing, energy seething around him like a storm. His hand rises, fingers splayed, ready to strike a final, fatal blow. Steve staggers forward, raising his fist despite the futility. He lunges. Shishido strikes. A blast of crimson force erupts from his palm, a bolt of pure, petrifying energy. Before the blow can land, Howlett dives in from the side, snarling. His claws slash upward, not at Shishido, but at the relic pulsing in his grasp. Sparks fly as the ancient artifact fractures, its chaotic energy surging out of control. The petrification wave backfires. Shishido's expression falters, stunned, as his own power turns against him. Veins of stone slither up his arm, crackling like frost. He tries to resist, screaming silently. But the curse spreads, crawling up his chest, his neck, his face. Within seconds, he is still, a statue of himself, frozen in agony, mouth open mid-roar, katana gripped tightly in hands turned to stone. From the collapsed edge of the catacombs, Talia emerges, guiding a barely conscious Alejo through the smoke. The siblings fall to their knees, overcome, arms wrapping around each other. Behind them, the surviving Howling Commandos regroup, bruised and bloodied. They look upon the cache of gold and relics, now bathed in a sickly light, the spoils of war lying in eerie silence beneath the tomb. Later, outside in the pale dawn light, the commandos convene. A silent, unanimous understanding passes between them. They leave the gold buried, marking the tomb with symbols of protection and honor. A hidden reparative offering to the Filipino people, a silent act of justice for the land and its scars. Elsewhere, the relics are carefully packed into wooden crates bearing the insignia of the Strategic Scientific Reserve, each one tagged with handwritten notes denoting their rightful origin, a pledge to return what was stolen. As the sun rises over the jungle, the final shadows of gods and monsters fade into history. The war continues. The post-credit scene opens on Tinsburg, Norway. We see Hydra vehicles, black and angular, roll across the icy terrain. Snow crunches beneath heavy boots. Hydra soldiers, clad in green uniforms, fan out and surround a stone church perched on a hill at the edge of the village. Torches flicker within. A tall figure steps forward. Johann Schmidt, the Red Skull, he surveys the church like a man reading scripture. Hydra soldiers kick open the large wooden doors. Soldiers storm in. The keeper doesn't move. His eyes shift toward a mural behind the altar, a painted serpent curling beneath a starry cube, an ancient representation of the Tesseract. Schmidt steps inside, his footsteps reverberating with ritualistic calm. He approaches the altar and gestures. Two Hydra troops push past the keeper and pry open the chest. Inside, a blue crystal orb, beautiful, radiant, but not the Tesseract. Schmidt examines it briefly, unimpressed. With a flick of his wrist, he signals one of his men. The keeper is executed on the spot, slumping to the stone floor. Then Schmidt's eyes drift upward. The mural, the snake, the cube. He turns. Another soldier notices something, a faint outline behind the stone wall beneath the altar. The trooper steps forward, presses his hand to the carved stone serpent's eye. A mechanism clicks. The wall opens. Within the hidden vault, an altar of smooth black stone, and resting atop it, a glowing blue cube suspended above its base like it defies gravity. The Tesseract, its light pulses, whispering energy through the chamber. Schmidt steps forward reverently. His gloved hand stretches out, and he lifts the Tesseract. It hums in his grasp, casting blue light over his red skull. Behind him, Hydra soldiers watch in awe and horror. One by one, Schmidt turns toward them. There's a grim satisfaction in his face.